Well, hey everybody, good morning and welcome to session 8 of our verse-by-verse study through the book of Amos here in our virtual life Bible study at City on a Hill. My name is Pastor Derrick. I want to welcome you in, long-time attenders, first-time guests, doesn't matter who you are or what time it is, thanks for stopping in. If you haven't liked the page and subscribed to this channel, then please do so. That helps us get these videos out there to more and more people. And while we make these really for our church at City on a Hill, we hope to be able to impact more than just our local area. And so help us do that. Like the page, subscribe. Love to have you tune in. You can set your notifications to where every time we upload something, you get a notification as well. And then you never miss a single thing that we do, which is great. Today in session 8, we're talking about chapter 7, verse 1 through chapter 8, verse 3. We're getting really close to the end here. We've got 2 more sessions after this. And so Amos was a small book, and that was one of the reasons I picked it. I felt like it would give us a nice journey through an Old Testament book that probably most of you are not familiar with after coming out of Genesis, which took 40 weeks. Similar to the 40 years in the wilderness is what it felt like sometimes, although Genesis was amazing. It's honestly definitely my favorite book in the Old Testament, maybe my favorite book in the Bible. I really love Genesis a lot. Today, we're going to talk and kind of work through 4 visions that God gives to Amos concerning Israel. And then we're going to talk about a little discussion that happens sort of as an interlude between the 3rd and 4th visions with a man named Amaziah. He's the priest in Bethel. There's this idea that I begin with in the introduction that I think is important, that in our modern world, the modern church, I think we have this mindset that God will not use me until I am ready, until I have enough Bible knowledge, until I've matured enough, until I've done this and that. That's when God will really begin to use me. So what I need to do is I need to learn the Bible, I need to pray more, I need to be in more Christian community, and I need to get to that point where I'm really ready, and then once I'm ready, when God asks me to do what I need to do, then I'll do it. Of course, the problem is like all things that we try and put in front of us as sort of these sort of self-goals, very few people are able to sort of will themselves through that. And so what happens is you never end up learning enough about the Bible to feel confident. And so you always end up stuck in this sort of purgatory, not literal purgatory, but where God can't use you because you haven't done everything you were supposed to do yet. And the fact of the matter is that's not at all a really biblical concept. Overwhelmingly, God calls people and then equips them. He doesn't wait for them to be equipped and then call them. So even going to some of like the top people in the Bible, right? Other than the Apostle Paul, who had already been trained as a Pharisee, so he had some theological knowledge, virtually everybody else in Jesus, virtually everybody else is not really above the standard, right? They're not a cut above everybody else. Moses was a stuttering outlaw that God calls through a burning bush, right? King David is a sheep herder, the youngest of 8 boys, the youngest of 8 brothers, the son of Jesse. He's not even considered when Samuel comes along to anoint one of them as king. He goes through all 7 brothers and is like, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. Don't you have anybody else? And Jesse's like, well, yeah, I got David, but he's young and he's out with the sheep, right? So he's not a cut above the rest of everybody. Who else is there? There's a few other people. Who else did I name in this? Moses, David. The bottom line, even Amos, right? What we're going to find out here with Amos in this chapter is that Amos is not a prophet. He's not like this learned guy. He doesn't have a theological degree. He doesn't know how to speak, multiple languages as a means of studying ancient documents. He's just a sheep herder from Tekoa, right? He's not anybody. And God goes, yeah, I'm going to use him. I'm going to give him my words, and I'm going to send him on a mission to do my bidding, and people will know because they don't expect this guy to be able to speak well or to have any sort of revelatory ideas. And so when he begins to speak and these things begin to happen, they will know that it is Yahweh and not him. That's why God does what he does. We find a little interchange between him and Amaziah where Amos says, I was no prophet nor a prophet's son. I was a herdsman and a dresser of sycamore figs. But Yahweh took me from following the flock and said to me, go and prophesy to my people of Israel. And so Amos goes and does what he is supposed to do. As he is there, God gives him 4 visions. And this is really the meat of the message today, or the meat of the lesson today, if you will. The first vision incorporates a massive swarm of locusts that are going to come and destroy the land. This is in the first 3 verses of chapter 7. Locusts are used as an act of judgment in a lot of other places. Deuteronomy 28:38, 2 Chronicles 7:13 and 14. Of course, Joel 1:4, another minor prophet, is likely probably the most similar to what we're seeing here. This is a locust swarm that would have taken up all of the vegetation. It says after the king's mowing, which means that once the crops were ready, the king would come and take the first fruits. He would decide what he wanted. Everything that was left for the rest of the people. So after the king got what he wanted, the locusts come and they take everything. So there's nothing for any of the people to eat. The locust swarm is so large that Amos sees it and is like, Lord, Israel is tiny in comparison. How can Jacob stand? They're so small. Have mercy on them, right? Please relent. Don't do this. And it says that God relents, or he changes his mind. This is in verse 3, depending on the translation you're reading. So Amos dodges a pretty big bullet for Israel here. The second vision comes, and this time it's not locusts, it's fire. But upon further reading and looking at how the Bible uses this terminology and this imagery, it's not a literal fire that's coming to consume the land. This is another word for drought. It's going to burn up and consume the great deep, which is the sort of subterranean water source that provides and nourishes water for the streams as well as all plant life and vegetation. And so with this kind of drought, drying up that great deep would mean essentially an end to all growth of any sort of vegetation whatsoever. It would be a complete and total disaster that would take the lives of thousands, if not millions, right? The land could no longer support livestock, so the animals would die, the livestock would suffer, their economy would tank, and they would have no food sources, so they would begin to starve to death. Again, such a difficult thing to see and such a large drought at play. Amos begs God to have mercy, to relent, and God, again, a second time relents. Now, the third vision comes, and there's a little bit of interpretive difficulty here, and I've given you a little bit of it. I don't want to go too deep into it because I don't want to confuse you, but there's a traditional way of understanding this passage, and there is a kind of newer approach to this that some scholars have begun to suggest. The traditional one is that it translates the Hebrew word anak as plumb line. And it's a plumb line that would have been used to ensure that a wall is straight, because a wall that is not straight, that's not plumb, would be easily breakable. It would not fortify a city well at all. People would easily overcome a city with walls out of plumb. And so God holds a plumb line down, and he says, I'm going to put it in the midst of my people. And the implication here is that the people are out of line as well. They're not straight. They're crooked. They're crooked morally. They're crooked emotionally and spiritually. They're idolatrous. They give in to sensuality. They're selling other human beings for their own, profits. It's a bad situation. And so that's the traditional, and that's the way that I would say I interpret this passage. I do want to tell you that there are some scholars who have suggested that this word anak means actually tin, which is like a metal, right, a weak metal, based on the Akkadian term anaku. And in this understanding, the tin is held up to the wall so as to say the walls are like tin, right? They're easily breakable and people can overcome them quite simply. They're weak, in other words, just like the people of Israel. Again, you don't end up with a really different understanding. The point is still very much the same, right? The people are out of balance, they're weak, they're going to be overtaken because of it. But I think that it's not as convincing of an argument, and I think that the plumb line example is probably a little bit better. God's judgment comes against them by destroying all of the high places of Isaac. The sanctuaries are laid waste. And then it says specifically that the house of Jeroboam will be taken down with the sword. There's a fourth vision in chapter 8, verse 1 through 3 with summer fruit, a basket of summer fruit, which is just another way of saying fruit that's really kind of past ripe, right? It's ready, sort of starting to get foul. The idea here is that Israel is past ripe. There's foulness happening. It's time to discard them as you would bad fruit. It says the end has come for my people. I will spare them no longer. Verse 3, the songs of the palace will turn to wailing that day. It will go from music and joy to wailing and mourning and death. Really, really rough visions. Interestingly, the third and fourth vision do not contain Amos begging for God to relent, and God does not relent. So these are visions that seem like they're going to come to pass. There's a little bit of an interchange that happens right in between the third and the fourth visions with a man named Amaziah. I've already mentioned him. He's the priest in Bethel. He goes to King Jeroboam, who's the king of the north at that time, and says, look, this guy Amos is here. He's causing a problem. He's stirring up all kinds of trouble. He's saying that the land, is going to suffer, that you're going to die by the sword, that Israel's going to go into exile. This is bad news. And so he comes back to Amos and he says, listen here, seer, which is I wouldn't make too much of that. There's another word for prophet. Seer is a different word. It's someone who specifically sees visions or dreams, but oftentimes seer and prophet are used interchangeably in the Old Testament. It could be that the word was chosen because it comes right in between two literal visions that Amos is receiving. So he is acting as a seer literally in this portion of the story, as it were anyways. And so this whole thing kind of unfolds, but there's this sort of accidental confession that takes place, where Amaziah is trying to kind of, get Amos out of there, and he makes this statement that sort of shows his cards a little bit. He says, let's see here, no longer prophesy at Bethel, for it is a sanctuary for the king and a royal residence. So don't come here to Bethel anymore, to the temple. No more prophesying here. This belongs to the king. Now there's a problem with that, right? Because the temple, the sanctuary, it is not a royal dwelling place. It is a heavenly, divine dwelling place. It does not belong to Jeroboam. It belongs to Jehovah God. And so there's a real problem here that Amaziah is sort of showing his cards in that he's saying, this is what I think of the temple, really. This doesn't really belong to God. This belongs to the king. And that's an issue. That's a real issue. Of course, Yahweh gives another prophecy to Amaziah through Amos after hearing that. He says, your wife will become a harlot in the city. Your sons and daughters will fall by the sword. Your land will be parceled up by a measuring line, and you yourself will die on unclean soil. I mean, not like worst possible outcome for Amaziah, right? Interestingly, Amaziah says one thing at one point, and I bring this up in here. He says, flee away to the land of Judah. That's where Amos is from, and there eat bread. It's kind of a weird thing to say, eat bread. It's a phrase that actually means something like go make a living there. To eat bread, it means to earn bread, right? To make a living doing what you're doing. In other words, what he's saying is go back to Judah and make your living there, as if being a prophet is something that you're paid to do. Now, there were these so-called court prophets that were paid to go and prophesy against other nations, to sort of start political issues and distrust and so on and so forth. And so Amaziah thinks that Amos is this like professional court prophet who's just been paid, and he's like, look, get out of here. Go back to Judah and make your living there. Don't come here and stir up trouble. And this is where, as I mentioned in the beginning, Amos says, I'm not a prophet, nor am I a son of a prophet. I'm just a sheep herder, a dresser of figs, a simple herdsman. God has called me to prophesy against you, so here I am. Bad news bears, right? Study guide this week is, I think, really solid. The questions are again, going verse by verse through the passage, so don't neglect that. This week is kind of an interesting discussion. It's called the Lord's Temple, and what we've done here is we have kind of use this interchange between Amos and Amaziah and the fact that the temple is confused to be, the king's temple and the king's sanctuary and not Yahweh's. And basically, here's the point, that in our new covenant under Christ, we don't have a temple that we go to. Our bodies are the temple for the Holy Spirit, right? 1 Corinthians 6, 19 through 20 talks about that. 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17 talks about how the gathering of God's people acts as a temple as well. And so this week in the discussion, I want you to talk about ways that we are to live that out practically. Do you take care of your physical body? Is physical self-care as important to you as emotional and spiritual self-care? It should be. It's the temple of the Holy Spirit. That doesn't mean, I've heard people talk about like tattoos, you wouldn't want to spray paint the walls of God's temple. That's not really the point of this. It's not about your outward appearance. It's about your inward health, right? So there is an element of physical health that's important. Your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit, then we ought to take care of it. So talk about that. Talk about the importance of meeting with one another. That's another really important aspect that I don't think we give enough attention to. We think, well, I listened to the sermon online, or yeah, I streamed this, or yeah, haven't been in a few weeks or whatever, but it's fine. The Bible puts a high premium on gathering together. It's how we stir one another up to love and good works. It's what Hebrews 10:24 says. So gathering is important. It's a massive part of Christian living. So don't neglect it. Talk about it and the physical aspect of your body. I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, if anything. And we will come back next week and have session 9. We've got 2 more sessions after this, so we're getting closer and closer to wrapping this thing up. And then I haven't decided fully yet what I'm planning on doing, but I have a pretty good idea of where we're going next in the New Testament. And I think it'll be a doozy. I think it'll be a lot of really rich stuff that'll come out of it. So haven't made the decision yet, but I will let you know ASAP when I do. Hope you're doing well. We'll see you next time. God bless you.